Grr, arg.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Mixtape Podcast, the podcast dedicated to examining film from a writer's perspective. I'm your host for this time around. My name is Marcelo Nostroza, joined as always by my fellow co-host, Dean Stark. And on today's edition of the show, we'll be talking about the 1989 film Back to the Future Part 2. So, as I do every week, I will pass it over to Dean to take us through this film.
Back to the Future Part 2 was directed by Robert Zemeckis, and it was written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. So if you don't know what it's about, it is about this. After visiting 2015, that was like 8 years ago. Oh my God. That's crazy. Sorry. Let's go again. After visiting 2015, Marty McFly must repeat his visit to 1955 to prevent disastrous changes to 1985. 2015 is the future, apparently. Damn, this is not aging well. Anyway, the opening scene is Saturday, October 26, 1985. Marty is standing outside his house. Jennifer, his girlfriend, shows up. Then Doc shows up in the DeLorean. He tells Marty that they have to go back to the future because something has happened with Marty and Jennifer's kids, and it's gonna cause a ripple effect, and it's not good, and they have to go back and save them and change events. So they all hop in the DeLorean, and Marty tells Doc, you better back up because you're not going to be able to reach 88 miles per hour. And then Doc says, obviously the famous line, roads, well, we're not where we're going, we don't need roads. Then they take off into the sky, and Biff sees this and is super confused. And if you haven't seen this movie, which you should have, there's a reason why there's a shot of Biff watching the DeLorean take off. Anyway, that was the opening scene. That's a good opening scene. You know why? We get straight the fuck into it. There's no fucking around. There's no piss fighting around. Straight into the movie. What do you think?
I love the opening to this movie because there's no wasted motion. It's basically picking up exactly from the ending of the last movie. And the thing that I like about it is that Marty opens up the garage and Doc basically shows up and they get their sort of mission for the second movie and we're off to the races. And the thing that I like about it is that when Marty, Jennifer, and Doc get into the DeLorean and they go into the sky, Biff comes out of the house and he sees the DeLorean up there in the sky. And there's a storytelling purpose for that. There's no wasted motion. There's no wasted character beats in the first two Back to the Future films. And that's what I like about it the most from a storytelling perspective. It's extremely efficient and it's just really, really great. It does not fuck around. But I have a question for you. How do you feel about the two? How do you feel about having a different Jennifer Parker for this movie? Do you think that the character of Jennifer Parker was necessary for this movie, or she was just there as window dressing?
She was just there as window dressing.
If Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis knew that they were going to make a Back to the Future 2 and 3, they wouldn't have ended the first one the way that they did, because I think that they felt obligated to start the second one exactly where they ended the first one. And because they started the second film at the ending of the first one, they had to deal with the Jennifer Parker problem. So I would have found a different way to deal with Jennifer Parker. Like I would have just left her there.
Yeah, I think doesn't Marty say like why didn't you just leave her there? And I can't remember what Doc says. So why did you bring her? What does he say?
Yeah. Doc says, "Well, I couldn't just leave her there with without any answers."
Right. And I'm going to get to why that doesn't make sense in 2 seconds, right? So this is the next scene I'm going to tell you. So they're flying on this whole thing I'm about to say is my favorite part of the whole fucking movie. They're flying on a sky highway, which when I was a kid, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's a sky, it's a highway, and there are turnoffs and shit, and I loved it. And then Doc says they're in the year 2015. So apparently in the year 2015, there's sky highways. There's not, but there should be. So Jennifer gets really excited. Oh my God, I'm in a time machine. And she's saying, oh my God, I can see our wedding and our kids. Like she just says the typical female bullshit. Like that's not what I would be wanting to see if I was in the future fucking wedding. Anyway, so she's saying that and she keeps going on and on and on and on. And then Doc has like this zapper thing and he gets her to look into it, and she like conks out. This is what I'm getting at. Why couldn't he have done that while she was still, in 1985? Why couldn't he have bought out that Zappa thing?
That's a great point. And if he would have used the sleeping inducer
Mm.
when they were in 1985, he could have reloaded it when they got back to the future. No, he could have reloaded it when they got to 2015. And if he would have reloaded it, then when the older version of Marty had to deal with his son, it wouldn't have been that complicated.
Yeah. So anyway, and we're not nitpicking for the diehard fans out there. Just asking
No,
questions.
no, we are not because we love this movie.
We
Yes,
love this movie. This is my favorite. It's my home. So anyway, she
yes.
falls asleep, and then they turn into Hill Valley, 2015. Now they get out of the car, and as a kid, as an adult, right now, right here, the shoes, the sneakers, and the jacket he gives Marty to this fucking day, I want. And I know there was like Nike or something brought out shoes that were similar, like on some fucking anniversary. Yeah, no, I want the shoes that are like the automatic laces. I want the jacket that like automatic sizes and then it fucking blow dries you when you fucking when it's wet. Like that's what I want. I'm not keen on the hat, but I will take the jacket and the shoes because like it's fucking great. Anyway, Doc sees Marty's son who is dressed exactly the same, but he looks like just like a bit of an idiot. And they decide to take Jennifer out of the DeLorean and leave her in an alleyway. And Doc says, "Don't worry, she'll be fine." Why not just leave her in the car? Why not just zip back to 1985, drop her back, and then come back? It's not that hard. Yes, no, maybe? Thoughts?
They could have left her in the car, but the reason that they took her out of the car was I think they needed to take her out of the car because they needed an excuse to go to Hill Valley. I think that Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis didn't want to deal with the character, but when they understood that they had to have Jennifer in there because they didn't know what to do with her, they started to use her as a device.
They made it
And
work.
what do you
Yes.
Yes, they made it work. So that's the reason why Doc didn't leave Jennifer in the car because he could have left her in the car. There-
Yeah.
There's no problem with that.
Yeah. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, they used her as a device to get them to go back to Hill Valley to have that whole scene. Yes, yes, I see that now. That's correct. So then Doc tells Marty to go to Cafe 80s and he goes, "It's some nostalgia place, but it's not done very well." And I'm like, "Holy shit. We have that now. We have nostalgia like 90s and 80s and 50s places." And I fucking love those places. And are they done perfectly? No. But it's just I love them and I'm like, "Okay, well that's true." The other thing that's true is that and I've seen this movie so many times, I never actually noticed this before. When I noticed it in this watch through, I laughed my ass off because more than ever now, it is so fucking true. Doc tells, Marty, "Order a Pepsi, here's a 50." And I laughed because I went, "Yeah, that's about right." Because everything's so fucking expensive now. He could have given him a $5 note. He gives, "Here, order one Pepsi, here's a $50 note." Yeah, because in the future, a Pepsi is going to cost $50. And I fucking laughed. I was like, damn, someone was like crystal balling their way through this movie. Anyway, so he goes, "Listen, go to the Cafe 80s, order a Pepsi, wait for a guy named Griff who will ask you about something about tonight. Say you're out, you don't want anything to do with it. Anything he says, say no, come back here and wait for me." Like that's the plan. Doc pulls out tomorrow's newspaper and it has a picture of Marty's son on it. And it says arrested for theft and sentenced to 15 years. And Doc says, "This event starts a chain reaction that will affect his entire family. So they have to prevent it from happening. It starts off like a chain reaction. So that's why he's pulled Marty to come back. He's got to stop this from happening, and then his family won't be like fucked." So, thoughts?
Again, I love the storytelling efficiency by Bob Gale in this scene because in this scene, we get a clear picture of what Doc and Marty are there for. And also, I love Doc's speech before he tells Marty the main reason why they're there. He goes, "Marty, I was afraid that you wouldn't recognize me, so I went to a regeneration clinic."
Yeah.
And he rips off a level of his fucking skin
Yeah.
and he goes, he goes, "Oh, I replaced my blood. I replaced my semen colon. I did about 20 years to my life." It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And when he actually does break down the plan for Marty, Marty keeps saying he doesn't understand. So I love the fact that Bob Gale chose to keep Marty questioning what the hell is going on here.
Mm.
Because a lot of times in movies like this, especially now, characters are given a mission and those characters inexplicably understand what they're supposed to do from moment one. But I
Mhm.
really appreciate that Marty, for almost this whole movie, is playing catch up, or at least in the first act of this movie, is playing catch up and is trying to go with the wave of this movie.
Yes.
And I just really appreciate that as a storyteller. And my favorite line of this entire scene of them in the alleyway is he goes, around the corner cafe 80s, a guy named Griff, just say no.
Just say no. Whatever he says, whatever he asks, say no.
And then he goes, and he goes, Marty, and he goes, Marty, be careful around that Griff guy. His bionic implants are a little fried.
And they are when we meet
And
Griff.
they are, and they are.
So Marty walks out into the town square and it's futuristic. And as a kid, I love this. I love anything futuristic if it's done well. So there are flying cars and there's epic future cars like on the roads. And I always find it funny what people in the 80s and 90s think fashion looks like in the future. Like anybody watching this movie, look at how the people walking past Marty are dressed. It's fucking hilarious. It's like this weird, like shape, like sharp shapes. I don't know, like square shoulders and stuff, almost 80s, but not like it's the funniest shit. Anyway, he sees a movie theater playing Jaws 19, which I thought was really funny and kind of like a poke at Steven Spielberg, but in a funny way because he would have thought it was hilarious. And then this holographic Jaws like comes out of the movie theater and like bites him, but it's holographic, so it's like not real, which is like kind of true because we kind of have that shit now. So that's kind of strange. And then Marty says Shark still looks fake. Which I loved. I loved. Anyway, he passes an antique store which has I tried to see everything it had in the window. I paused it, right? I couldn't see everything, but it had a VHS of Jaws 2, it had a lava lamp, it had a Perrier water, it had a Roger Rabbit toy, which was really cool. It had an iron, a clothing iron, a JVC, like one of those big chunky cameras, a dustbuster, which we still use to this day, and like obviously the granddaddy, the sports almanac. Now, I want this to be real. I'm gonna wish it into manifestation. This Cafe 80s thing is like it's still one of the coolest things I've ever seen. He enters Cafe 80s. It's epic. And instead of servers, you get a TV with like a famous person asking you, "What do you want to order?" Right? And I'm like, even now, that's what I want when I walk into a restaurant, a television with like, I don't know, Brad Pitt going, "Hey, let me take your order." Yeah, okay, here it is, right? And then Marty asks for a Pepsi. And every time I see it, I'm just like, holy shit, this Pepsi comes up from underneath the counter and he grabs it. I want that Pepsi. I want that container. I want that Pepsi. I've always wanted it. I don't even know. Can someone make it as a prop and put real Pepsi in it? I really want it. I don't know because I'm actually obsessed with Pepsi. So I'm not a Coke person. I'm a Pepsi person. Anyway, so we see an older Biff and he walks over thinking that it's this reality, like it's Marty Jr. and tells him that his dad, you know, uh, flushed his life down the toilet and all this stuff. It's kind of like exposition. Look, what was the point of old Biff coming to tell Marty this, if only to tell the audience that Marty in the future is a washed up dad? That's the only reason because there's no other reason why Biff would be fucking walking up to him. Anyway, we meet Griff, which is Biff's grandson, Griff and Biff, and he's a dickhead. He is a massive, massive dickhead. And then Marty Jr. walks into Cafe 80s. and Marty hides because they Doc said you can't like see each other. Griff bullies Marty Jr. Marty Jr. is just he's just like he's an idiot. He's just an idiot. He's a pushover. He's just yeah. Then Griff throws Marty over the counter where our Marty pops up and he tells Griff no. And Griff is pissed off and then he calls him a chicken, which it always got me. It's like it doesn't make sense that someone calls him a chicken and it's like he'll instantly like nobody calls me. I don't know. I always thought that that was a bit like cheesy. I understand why we needed it as a tool, but I always thought that that was cheesy. Anyway, we know Marty has a real issue with that. And then the hoverboard sequence is a cool sequence. I want a hoverboard, not a shit hoverboard that they've got for display, a real one that hovers. I want a hoverboard. I want the shoes. I want the jacket. I want the Pepsi. That's what I want. And I'm not going to die until I get them. That's it. That's a long scene, but that's fuck. Take it away. I'm getting a drink.
Power laces. All right. No.
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
I listen. I love the entire sequence when Marty ascends on Hill Valley of 2015. It's so well. Didn't mention the fashion of Hill Valley in 2015. It looks very square. Look, if I'm being honest, guys, the fact that the fashion in the future, Back to the Future, looks like the fashion that you will find in Star Trek. And I do want to
100%.
address,
I was thinking
yeah,
Star
100%,
Trek.
right?
I was like, that's what Star Trek thinks the future looks like.
Yeah. I do want to address something. If you look at this movie, there's a lot of references to Jaws and other Spielbergian movies. Well, I want to give you an explanation. This Back to the Future was produced by uh, Steven Spielberg,
Mhm.
Frank Marshall, and Kathleen Kennedy. So it makes sense why you have all the Jaws references and shit like this. So that moment when Marty stops in front of the feeder and you see the hologram of Jaws basically eating him, and he fucking panics. He fucking panics because he's essentially never seen a hologram before. I just loved in that moment when he stands back up and he says, "Still looks fake." It's amazing.
Yeah.
Simply amazing. When Marty goes into the cafe 80s, I am like Dean. I would love a cafe centered around the 90s and specifically, and
Mm.
have famous people have famous people have to take my order, like to have Margot Robbie take my order, or to have uh uh
No,
uh,
you have to have
uh
someone from the 90s.
oh shit, that's right. You know what?
Yeah. Pick someone
You
from the
know,
90s that you want someone to take your order.
I you know what? You know what? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with my girl. I'm gonna go with Katie Holmes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. She's taking your order.
Yeah, she's taking my order. But the thing that I love about this Cafe 80s, the whole Cafe 80s thing, is nothing works like it should in there. There is a television act. There's somebody sitting at the counter listening to Michael Jackson on a television give him the order of the day. And as he's speaking, the television fucks up and he repeats himself 20 fucking times.
Yeah.
And even when Marty goes in and he's greeted by a TV, there's this figure on the TV that tells him, "Welcome to the Cafe 80s. When it's always morning in America, even in the afternoon."
Is it
And
Reagan that's on his TV?
it's Reagan.
It's
Yeah,
Reagan.
it's
Yeah, yeah,
Reagan.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's Reagan. As he's going through the order, another talking head comes into the picture and he says, "No. You must have the hot pepper
Oh,
special."
that's right.
It's
The
listen,
argument.
it it's the most absurd, wonderful thing ever, but
Yeah.
this whole thing is getting to a point. When Marty goes, "Guys, I just want a Pepsi," and the Pepsi comes from the bottom of the counter and up, and it comes in this really cool cylinder thing. They actually sold that.
When?
They act no, they actually look, 3 years ago,
Huh?
Pepsi actually put out collector's editions of that thing here in the US.
Oh, of
If
course, because 'cause I'm stuck in fucking no man's land, so we didn't get it here. We don't even have color TV here, folks. No, we do, but, like, it fucking feels like we don't have color TV. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So no, that's okay. It's okay. So no, when so I, being such a Back to the Future nerd, I looked it up, and to get one of these things, they cost like a because they were collector's items,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you could only get them at certain stores. So every store that I went to didn't have one,
That's fucked.
and there was this guy on eBay selling one of them for like $120. I'm like, no fucking way, forget that.
Oh, these scalpers, assholes.
But everything about that scene in the Cafe 80s was great. Now, to address your point about Marty getting the giant exposition bomb by older Biff, that is a part of the movie where I feel that Bob Gale. Listen, I love this movie, but I don't think the script for this movie is as strong as his script for Back to the Future is, because there are a lot of storytelling things that happen in this movie, but they happen because Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis need them to happen.
Yes. Yes.
This script doesn't flow as easily as the first one does.
Mm.
And that to me is just really sad, because a lot of the things that Bob Gale probably felt that he needed to a lot of the things that Bob Gale felt that he needed to deal with from a storytelling perspective, he didn't need to deal with. He just
Yeah.
dealt with them because he felt that he didn't have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of those big things is a Jennifer thing that we've already talked about, so I'm not gonna go into that.
Mm.
How do you feel about that, just real quickly?
I never noticed it before. Look, I my favorite is Back to the Future 2, but script-wise, it probably is a little bit tighter in the first one. There are a few things that happen in this one where it just happened just to push the story forward. Not enough to make it bad, but it's it's kind of like they couldn't figure out how to do certain things or get certain information, so they just which doesn't make it doesn't kill it for me, but I can see what you're saying about the differences in the scripts, yeah.
Right.
So Marty sees that the Cubs win the World Series, and a man standing next to him says, "Hey, now this is another exposition point. This guy has nothing to fucking do with anything. The only reason he's there is to tell Marty, I wish I could go back and put some money on the Cubs so I could win." And then Marty goes, "Oh," and he goes and he buys the sports almanac. Another example of we need Marty to get the sports almanac. How are we going to get it? How are we going to get it quickly? We're just going to have this random person stand next to him and say a line, and then he's going to get it. Agree? Disagree?
I think that the guy that comes up to Marty asking him to thumb $100 is just another way, unfortunately, of it's just another way for Bob Gale to push the story forward. Unfortunately, it just sucks that this movie is littered with coincidences
Yeah.
from a storytelling perspective. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. There's a few of them, and I didn't pick them up before either. um, which is sad. I don't think there's a lot. I think there's a few. I don't think I mean, I may be wrong. We'll see, we'll keep going. We'll keep going, we'll see what pops up. So Doc ends up coming back, picks up Marty, and Biff sees the DeLorean and Marty, but then Marty Jr. walks past him, and then Biff freaks out. And then we see the newspaper change from, Marty Jr. was arrested to the gang arrested because they've had the whole chase sequence with the hoverboards, which is a really cool chase sequence. And then they go back to pick up Jennifer because they've done, what they've needed to do. And the police, there's these two like hot female cops in this tight like police clothing. I don't know. It's so yeah, it's so bizarre. I'm not against it. I'm just like I noticed that and I'm like, that's such a weird thing. I'm not against it. But I just think it's funny. Anyway, they find Jennifer and they ID her, and they ID her by a thumbprint. Now they find her address because obviously this is the future and her older self is in the future. Obviously they would have the same thumbprint. And so they find out she lives in Hill Valley, and they say, okay, they're going to take her home. Now, Doc freaks out. So now they need to go to Hill Valley next to get Jennifer because she's going to wake up and not know what the fuck's going on. And then Doc finds the sports almanac and has a major issue with it. and says, "I don't do it for financial gain. I do it for X, Y, and Z. You know, put it in the trash. You don't need it." And then Biff comes out and he finds the sports almanac, overhearing that Doc invented a time machine. It's another coincidence because, like, oh, Biff just happened to be, I don't even know where the fuck he was. He was like in some back alley thing. So, again, another, I feel like there's going to be a lot. Another coincidence that Biff just happened to be there, like listening to the conversation. Look, I understand what Doc is saying about the sports almanac, but then I don't because it's like, come on, dude. Like, you can't let him win a little bit of money. Like, a little bit of financial gains, like, not that bad. But yeah, anyway, what do you think?
What do I think? I think that Doc is being self-righteous.
Yeah, I think
And
so too.
I also think that Biff being there, or Biff being in a behind the closet alley, and him coming through the door exactly when Marty and Doc walk away to go back to the DeLorean, and him going, "So, Doc Brown invented a time machine. Really?" Ugh.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just think that this movie is fantastic, but it has too many goddamn holes. And I wish I wasn't it has too many holes.
yeah, it does. Yeah. So the cops end up dropping Jennifer off at her house and they fingerprint her to enter, which is cool. You need a fingerprint to enter. You don't have a key anymore. I like that. I think that's pretty cool. And that's coming because you can already do that with cars. You just press your finger and the car starts. Anyway, Jennifer wakes up in her house and she realizes she's still in the future. She starts looking around and she tries to leave because she hears people, she hears noises, but there's no doorknob on the door. She's like, fuck do I get out? So she goes and she hides in like a fucking, what is it? Like a cupboard. It's not a cupboard.
Closet.
Closet, sorry. She hides in a closet. And then Marty's mum and dad arrive and tell and look, this is an damn it, this is another exposition thing. This is like the third scene in a row. They come in and they start telling the story of how Marty got into a car accident, broke his hand, had to give up playing the guitar, give up music, and basically everything went downhill from there.
Why couldn't they have given us Marty's backstory in this scene? Why did older Biff have to say it in the cafe?
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think of that.
Right?
Right. Right.
Why did Bob Gale feel the need to have to double down on the thing that destroyed Marty's life?
Huh. That's true. I don't
Huh.
know. Maybe for Marty to know because Marty isn't listening to this conversation. Jennifer is.
Oh, okay. Oh shit. I didn't consider that. Wow. Mind blown, guys. Right here on the pod.
Me too.
Poof.
Me too. But I just find this conversation happy. I just find this conversation weird because Marty's mum and dad are telling Marty's son and daughter the story that they already know about their own dad. Why is she doing? Why is she retelling the story for us?
And
The kids
what
already know what happened to their own dad. They know he was in an accident. They know he doesn't play guitar anymore. Why is she telling them?
oh my god, that's such a good point that I consider. Why the fuck
For us, Marty and Doc arrive, and Biff followed them. I don't know how he followed them, but he somehow he got into a taxi and he randomly followed them to Hill Valley. Doc goes off. Marty is distracted by something, and then Biff. This is so ridiculous. I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. Biff gets in the DeLorean and he takes off. First of all, how does Marty not notice? And second of all, how does Biff know how to drive the fucking DeLorean? It's a time machine. How does he know how to work it?
he sh- What the fuck is this?
Yep. Mm. I want to know, Marcelo.
You know what? There is something that there's a mechanic that me and Dean have always that me and Dean have come up with for this season. I think we came up with it last season, where we give writers a pass
Mm.
for shit like this, but I refuse to give Bob Gale a pass for this shit because this is unexcusable. Because there's no fucking way
Mm.
that older Biff should know how to drive a fucking time machine. It's not like a
Nobody
fucking
should know.
look. Because we are in the year 2015, sure, maybe he knew how to make the car levitate and drive off with the car. That's fine.
Okay.
But there's no fucking way that he should know how to work the time circuits and how to work the time panel within the car
Yeah.
because he was never told.
No. Don't forget, Biff doesn't know that he has to get the car up to 88 miles per hour in order to even time jump.
What in the Oh my god.
He doesn't know that either. So
With that being said, I do want to double down on what Dean just said. Look, we are taking this movie apart from a writer's perspective because that's what we do here. But that does not take away my love for this movie because I grew up with this movie. I love this movie.
yeah, no, me too, me too. My other favorite part is the pizza. When I was a
Yes,
kid,
we didn't talk
holy
about that.
shit, no, because it's now. Holy fucking shit, this pizza. I okay, the shoes, the jacket, the Pepsi, the pizza. That's what I want. That's what I want. It's tiny, right? It's tiny.
Yep.
And then she puts it into the fucking oven or the dehydrator she puts it into the hydrator.
Hydrate
2
oven.
seconds later, it's a massive fucking pizza. It hydrates the pizza. And you know what's funny? We actually do have dehydrated food now. Like that's a thing now. Not the pizza thing's not a thing, but we have dehydrated food that can be hydrated. Not to that extent, but that's what we have. And that's the funniest I just want but you know what? Looking at the pizza, half of it is pepperoni and half of it's got like what we call them capsicums, but you call them bell peppers. Why the fuck would you have scrapings of bell peppers on a fucking pizza? Oh my god, that's fucking gross. That's fucking gross.
Furthermore, I ask you, why the fuck would you have pineapple on a pizza?
Stop it. I love pineapple.
You do?
Are we gonna have an argument? I love pineapple on a pizza. It's an Australian thing. Hawaiian pizza is the best. So there you go. There you go. Or we're gonna have
All right.
about 20,000 unsubscribers now. They like pineapple on pizza. Unsubscribe. Fuck these
Savages.
weirdos.
No, no.
We meet Marty in the future, like the dad. So he's older, and he's a washed up like business guy, and he does a dodgy deal, and then his boss finds out, and then he gets fired from his job, and then Doc shows up and telling Jennifer to leave, and she goes, I don't know how to leave, and he says, press your finger to the plate, like it's a fucking fingerprint thing. And this is actually really funny. As Jennifer leaves, her older self comes in, and they both see each other, and they both faint, but they both say, like, young Jennifer says, I'm old. And young Jennifer says, I'm young, like at the same time. And they both faint. Which I think is funny. And then, just in the nick of time, Biff brings back the DeLorean, but he breaks his cane and leaves some of his cane in the car. And now they go back to 1985. Convenient that he comes back just in time. But yeah.
And also convenient that he broke off the hilt of his cane in the car, right?
Isn't it convenient?
By the way, does old Biff have a heart attack after he gets out of the car?
Oh my god! Every time I see that scene, it hurt. Like I get physical pain because the actor plays it so well. I'm like, I always thought when he was getting out of the car, he hit himself in the chest when he was trying to get his cane out, and that's why. But he might have been having a heart attack. I have no idea.
I think it's a heart attack because
Well, we never went
the
back
cop.
to it. We don't know.
Yeah, no. But we do actually see where old Biff goes later in the movie. So essentially,
Mm,
old Biff's mission is over. When he returns the DeLorean to 2015, his
mm,
mission is over. So what
yeah,
would be a good way to write the character out? Heart attack.
that's true. I didn't even get that at all. I did not get that. So good job, Bob Gal.
Victory. Victory.
That's it. So Doc, they're back in 1985. Doc drops Marty back at his house and then leaves. Marty climbs in a window because the side passage door is like the locked. But another family is living there now, and his whole neighborhood looks like trash. Like it's gone to absolute shit, except for a fancy hotel called Biff's. Biff also has a museum about him and a casino dedicated to him. And it's like, what? Like the whole town is fucked except for this really nice hotel casino. there's like a movie playing saying Biff is one of the richest and powerful men in America because he kept winning on the races. And he ended up marrying Marty's mum, Lorraine, and then some goons, and Billy Zane before he was the Phantom, grab Marty and knock him out, and that's it.
I swear to God, when Doc and Marty go back to the alternate 1985, it's my favorite sequence of the movie because this place looks so fucked up and so dilapidated. I love it.
Mm.
When Marty basically walks into the lobby of the hotel and Bob Gale again does exposition because he has to. He even does exposition for Back to the Future 3 that hasn't
Oh,
even
yeah.
happened yet.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
There are several instances in this movie where Doc says, after we finish this mission, I'm going to go back to our time and destroy the time machine. My only regret is, oh, that I won't be that I won't be able to go and see the old West
Yeah.
and really get an answer to the question that plagues everyone, the massive question. And you know what that question is? Women. How to figure out women. That's that's like his primary question that he wants to figure out in life. Women.
Why would going back to the Wild West answer that?
I have no idea.
Makes no sense.
But if you notice before they leave Hilldale, he says, I want to answer one question. And he wants to answer the question of he wants to answer the mystery of women. That's
Mm.
all he says.
Yeah.
But listen, I love the sequence when Marty's watching the television and it's running through Biff's life, and it comes to the part where Biff marries Lorraine. And
Mm.
Michael J. Fox's reaction is so genius. He goes, "No!"
Yeah.
He backs up, and Biff goons take him, and he goes, "There's two ways that we can do this: the easy way or the hard way." And then he just goes, "The easy way."
Yeah, because 'cause you're wondering, because they knock him out and they're like, "The easy way," and I'm like, "What's the hard way?" You never know. You
No,
never
never
know.
know.
So Marty wakes up, in the casino and his mum, Lorraine, is there, but she looks a bit different. She drinks, she's at a boob job, she's wearing, like, this sparkly dress, like, she's not who kind of he knows her to be in his reality. Biff comes in, Biff's a dick, as he always is, and he hits Lorraine. They have an argument, he hits Lorraine, then he punches Marty, and then Lorraine says, "That's it, I'm leaving you. I've had enough of this." And he says he's going to cut off the money to all of her kids because none of them are his kids, but he gives them like allowances. He's like, "Yep, I'm going to cut them off." And she says, "You wouldn't dare." And he's like, "Yep, I would. I'm going to cut them all off. I'm going to cut you off." And so she goes, "Okay, Biff, you win. I'll stay." And you're just like, "Oh, that fucking stinks." And then Lorraine sits down. She pours herself a drink and she says to Marty, "He was right. I was wrong. And he deserves our respect." And Marty's like, "What the he can't even believe it." He's like, "What are you talking about?" She tells Marty because he's like, "Where's dad? Like, where is he?" And then she tells him that his dad, has been same place that he's been for the last 12 years, which is in, a cemetery, and then Marty goes to the cemetery and, we find out that he was murdered, but that scene is sad because there are I don't even think that Bob Gale actually, like, meant for it to come I don't know if he meant for it to come across this way, but it's sad because there are so many women in those relationships where they defend the guy or they won't leave because they're dependent on them. Personally, I do know a few women in those situations, so it kind of hit harder because I've not experienced it personally, but I know people in that situation. And it's just heartbreaking, it's like you want them to break free, but they just can't, and yeah, it's sad. It is sad. But luckily, this is a timeline that Marty can change, and he does. So, thoughts?
Yeah, the whole sequence of Marty waking up in Biff's penthouse is really, really sad. But the thing that I like about it the most is Bob Gale basically does a remix of Back to the Future 1 when Marty was knocked out and he was waking up by a younger version of his mother, but except this time he's woken up by an older version of mother that's been, you know, plastic surgery to all hell because Biff wanted her to be like that. I just think I think it's a really interesting storytelling device how Bob Gale plays with similar scenes that he's already done in the three Back to the Futures. I think it's a really, really interesting storytelling device and storytelling sort of nod that he gives to himself throughout all these three movies.
So Doc meets up with Marty and tells him he found Biff's cane in the DeLorean, and that's why everything's gone to shit.
What?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Really?
And then
Oh, that's convenient. Sorry, go ahead.
isn't it? So he believes that he took the car and gave his younger self the almanac. So they leave. Oh, okay. So they leave to go back to stop him from doing so. In what? Because in this, and also in this reality, Doc is also committed. Now, Biff had him committed. Probably it's never said, but it's probably to stop him from building another time machine to stop Biff from doing what to stop them from doing exactly what Marty and Doc are going to do. But the problem is, if they're going to go back and stop Biff from giving the almanac to his younger self, they need to know the exact moment that Biff took the DeLorean and the time frame that he gave it to his younger self. So, thoughts?
This is another exposition scene that this is the only exposition scene that I feel is necessary in this movie. Cause as a kid, like I love this movie, but Back to the Future as a kid made my head hurt because there was so much going on in this movie. So to have Doc break it down and to basically spoon feed to the audience and say we are in an alternate 1985 because older Biff gave younger Biff the almanac. It's a very, very complicated scene, but I feel that it's necessary. I just wish that Bob Gale could have written it a little bit better
Hmm.
because I found it. If I'm being honest with you, I found it to be a little cluttered.
That scene we already knew. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that
Uh-huh.
scene of that whole scene of Doc and Marty talking, we already knew. We already knew that Biff went back and gave himself the almanac and that's why he's rich. We knew that. So I don't know if we necessarily needed a scene explaining what the audience already knew. So they've told us something that we already know. And if you tell your
Yeah.
audience what they already know, it's either treating them like they're stupid as if, "Oh, just in case you don't know, this is what happened." It's like, "No, actually we're smart enough to figure out this is what happened." I understand
Right.
that
Right.
they
Right.
need to know, but there could have been something else happening where that could have because that was a long scene, and I'm sitting there like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, we
It
already
was
know
very long.
this. We know this." And then he explains and this, and we have to go back, and it's like, "Yeah, well, of course we" like, it seemed obvious to me what he was
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
So anyway, Marty goes back to see Biff, asking him how he got the almanac, and he says and Biff says, November 12th, 1955, a man saying he was his relative gave him the almanac and tells him that the almanac tells him the outcome of every sporting event till the end of the century. And an old man and a young wide-eyed kid might show up asking about the book if that happens. Now, this is another coincidence thing. I don't know why, but Biff has matches on the table, and Marty takes matches and puts them in his pocket. There's a reason he does that, but there's no reason why he takes them. Like, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? Why would he take matches? What would be the point?
Because he needs those matches for later. It's
But he
right.
doesn't know that.
Yeah, I know that. I know that. But it's right as convenience, but we already agreed that we're not gonna give Bob Gill shit because this movie is filled with holes
Yeah,
that
that's
Bob
true.
Gill needed to fill.
That's true. So Biff pulls out a gun and chases Marty to the roof. Biff tells him that he was the one that killed his father, which we already knew. We knew that. It didn't need to be said. And then Marty jumps off the roof, and you're like, what? And then rises up standing on the DeLorean, and then gets in the DeLorean and
Uh,
tells Doc they have to go back to 1955.
Again, Bob Gill had Biff say shit that wasn't necessary because we got it.
Who is this movie geared to? Like, what's what's the age that it's made for?
13 to 14-year-olds?
And that's why there's so many conveniences because 13 and 14-year-olds, they don't notice. That's why.
But here's a question. When we were kids, did we notice all this shit?
No, I didn't even notice it till now.
Okay, that's okay.
So he gets a pass.
This whole movie, we've been ragging on Bob Gale, but he gets a pass. He gets I forgive you for this whole thing.
If it's a movie geared towards kids, I give the screenwriter a pass because kids are not going to notice shit, and the movie has to go along. Marty tracks down Biff in 1955 because he's gone back to 1955, and he sees him harassing Lorraine on the streets, saying she's his girl, and Lorraine's just disgusted by Biff, just like she was in the first one. What is it? Oh, Marty hops in the back of Biff's car under like a blanket thing, and then older Biff, the one that got in the DeLorean, gets in the driver's seat and basically shows young Biff the almanac, telling him what we already know. That's good timing. Not that we're going to rag on it, but that's pretty fucking epic timing.
Convenient, right? By the way, I just want to say something. Younger Biff would be a giant walking lawsuit because
Not in the
this
50s, he
guy,
wouldn't.
yeah, but this guy tries to pull up this woman's skirt and what is wrong with you?
This actor is so good. He plays multiple parts very differently.
He does.
I think he's just, I don't know what his name is. I'm so sorry. But this
No,
actor that plays
no,
Biff and Griff is awesome.
yeah, no, and also, I feel so bad for this actor because Back to the Future, I think, is his biggest role, and
Probably, yeah.
and he and he must have to deal with so many people believing that he's Biff.
Yeah. Yep.
It's crazy. Um,
Yeah.
my favorite thing about the scene is when Biff starts to walk back to his car. He starts to walk across the street back to his car, and Lorraine and her friend are running down the street, and he goes, "Lorraine, someday you'll be my wife." He goes back to the car and he says, "Get the hell out of the car, old man." And he goes, "Biff, if you want that girl, I can make it happen." Just the whole sequence between Biff and his older self is phenomenal. And when older Biff starts the car, it's just so great.
So Biffy's on his way to the dance, and Marty's in the back under the blanket. And Marty, this is interesting. Marty has a walkie-talkie that he can talk to Doc on, and he's in the
How,
back seat talking. And I don't know how Biff doesn't hear him. Doesn't hear him. That I always found weird. I'm like, can't you hear that there's someone talking literally like half a foot away from your ear?
okay. Bob Gale, you get a pass. That's all I'm going to say. Because I could, but I'm not going to.
So Marty tells Doc where he's going. He's going to the dance, and Doc reminds him that there's already two of him there. Because remember, there's the original one, and then there's the one where he went back in the last movie. So there's two of him there, and now he's the third one. The original and the other Marty that went back. And don't bump into any of them because it could be disastrous. And then, in his Doc fucking way. And then they get to the dance, and Marty is trying to get the almanac because Biff has it with him. When a teacher confiscates it from Biff, Marty follows the teacher to his office and tries to multiple times to grab the almanac. But when he finally gets it, he finds that it's only the cover, and inside is a completely different magazine. He's like, oh, fuck. And then he finds Biff. He grabs the almanac, he punches him out, he foils the bullies that are chasing out. I'm condensing it, by the way. He foils the bullies, but then Biff finds him and takes the almanac back and drives off. Because Marty finds the almanac and it's just the cover. Why would Biff take the cover off the almanac and put it on another magazine? He doesn't even know that anybody's wants it. What would be the point?
You're right. What the fuck would be the. Oh, wait a minute. Strickland. Because if Biff gets caught with a gambling book, Strickland's going to take it away from him, which he did.
Yeah, but how? So he put it on the cover of another book just in case? And
Yeah.
why would he's at a dance. The teacher has no right to confiscate someone's reading material.
Oh, wait. First of all, Strickland is an asshole.
That's true.
Second of all, this is the 50s. If this movie was made now, the teacher would have no right. But in the 50s, teachers had all the right.
I'll give you that one. Doc picks Marty up and they follow Biff, and Marty grabs the hoverboard, which he's left in the car. It's funny. What's his name? Doc allows him to keep the hoverboard, but not the almanac. So, can you just does he like what is it? Like I would be
Make up your
taking so
mind, dude.
like, if you take a hoverboard back to 1985, aren't people gonna fucking ask questions?
Yeah.
Right.
Also, you would never be able to use it, either.
Anywhere. Maybe in
Yeah,
the
anywhere.
backyard, you
Look,
could go in circles.
yeah, also yes, but also, the only time you really use it is at night when there are not too many people around.
That's true, that's true. So anyway, Marty's in the DeLorean, he hops on the hoverboard holding onto the DeLorean, and he moves towards Biff's car because the DeLorean is following behind. Marty pushes off from the DeLorean and jumps onto the back of Biff's car. Marty tries to grab the magazine multiple times without Biff seeing, but then Biff does, and there's this whole scene where they kind of fight each other. Marty's on the side. It's a cool sequence where Marty's on the side of the car, hanging off the side on the hoverboard, and Biff is trying to fucking get him off. Eventually, Marty gets the magazine, and Biff chases him in the car. There's like a tunnel, and they kind of play chicken, which is cool. Which is cool. And then Marty's on the hoverboard, and just as Biff is about to run Marty over, a line of flags kind of comes down from the air. Marty grabs them, and we see that it's attached to the DeLorean, and Marty lifts up, and then Biff crashes into a manure truck, just like in the original. So that was that.
It's a really, really fun scene, and it really it gets the pulse racing, but I feel that it's kind of like a remix of what Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis did in the first one with, Biff and his gang chasing Marty outside of the restaurant. It's a great action sequence to put in a 3rd act.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It was a really, really cool scene. So Marty
Yes.
ends up burning the almanac. Haha.
Matches.
Fucking matches. Yeah, that's why he took the matches, because he knew he was going to have to burn the almanac.
Of
And
course he did.
he sees the newspaper change from George McFly murdered to George McFly honored. So he's changed the future. The DeLorean then gets struck by lightning and basically evaporates with Doc inside. And Marty's like, oh, fuck. Right?
Okay.
Because they're still in 1955.
When I was a kid,
Mhm.
and Marty goes, "Doc, you should be really careful. You don't want to get struck by," and he actually gets struck by lightning. I lost my fucking mind because guys, back when we were kids, there was no Marvel. There was none of this.
No.
So what's gonna happen over the next couple minutes blew the back of my head wide open.
Yeah. And then a man shows up from Western Union handing Marty an envelope saying his company has had this letter in their possession for 70 years with instructions for it to be given to a man of Marty's description at this exact location at this exact time. And this guy's he has no idea what's in it. They've just had it for 70 years. What I find funny is that it's pissing down rain and Marty opens it in the rain. And I'm like, dude, it's gonna why you at least get in the car and open it. God damn. Because as soon as he opens it, the ink starts fucking going everywhere. I'm like, come on, dude. Anyway, the letter's from Doc, who says he's been living in 1885 for the past few months. Set up. Set up for part three.
No,
Thoughts?
payoff. This is all payoff because we've had various hats on the ground indicating that if we had a part 3, we were gonna go into the Old West, and that's
Yeah.
exactly where we're going.
That's true. That's true.
I do agree with you that he shouldn't have opened up the letter, right there in front of the car. He should have
Mm.
gotten into the car.
Yeah.
Like, why like, I don't and also, I love the moment when the Western Union guy goes, "Kid, do you need my help?" And he goes, "There's only one man that can help me," and then it cuts to Doc on the top of the clock tower from
Yeah.
the first movie.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
so great.
Yeah, so Marty goes and sees Doc of 1955. And this is from the first movie when Marty is just left, and then Marty comes running in and Doc almost has a heart attack. He's like, "I just sent you back." And Marty's like, "No, no, I'm back. I've come back." And Doc's like, "Great Scott!" And then he just fucking faints. And that's literally the
He
end of
goes
it.
No, he goes, I just sent you back to the future. I know, but I'm back. I'm back from the future. Great Scott! Whack! Ah, so great. I love this ending because it's a great way to tee up part 3 Look, this movie has so many holes in it that I can't be. As a screenplay writer, this movie gives me agita up the yin yang. It does, but I love it nonetheless. It's fantastic, so fantastic.
I first watched this movie on VHS, and when it was finished, when I saw the to be continued, I was like, "What?" I almost had a fucking heart attack, and then it went Wild West, and I'm like, "Where's that movie?" And because this is before we knew anything about anything. There was no YouTube, there was no fucking you couldn't look anything up. You were just hoping and praying that the movie would come out at some point. Like, you would just walk into the video shop, you would walk into Blockbuster, and it would just be there. Nobody knew anything about anything. It was pure what a time to be alive, eh?
Yeah,
When you couldn't just look shit up.
fantastic.
You just had to, like, live on a hope and a fucking prayer. That's what we lived on,
Yeah.
hopes and prayers. Even atheists. It was so
When
funny.
yeah, yeah, even atheists. When I was a kid, this movie was out of print for several years. For
Wow.
like 8 years, I couldn't get my hands on this movie. For 8 years, I had to live off of the recordings that I took off of TBS.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And I remember when they released all 3 movies in a blue VHS case, a
Mm,
blue VHS set.
mm,
It was so fantastic because I remember, leaving school early, and my grandmother took me to Blockbuster. She didn't tell me anything.
mm.
She took me to the front counter, and she said, "Wait a minute, I got you something." And she put something in my hands, and I open up my eyes, and there it is, Back to the Future, the whole thing.
Wow.
And it still got the plastic on it, so I go, "Wait a minute, is this mine?" And she goes, "Yes. Watch it as many times as you want." That's one of the finest memories that I have of my grandmother.
That's awesome. Trivia?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I got wrapped up. I'm sorry.
No,
Trivia. Go
that's
ahead.
alright. The plot line of George McFly being dead was because Crispin Glover just refused to do the sequel. It's interesting because the first movie did so well. So I maybe he just hated his experience. I don't know.
No, but the problem with Kristen Glover was he wasn't comfortable with the fact that as a result of Marty changing the future, his family got riches. That's what he was uncomfortable with.
He's an actor. It's like me going to like a job as a barista going, "You know what? I'm really uncomfortable making fucking lattes with a shot of vanilla and, fucking caramel. I'm really uncomfortable with it and
Yeah,
I don't want to do it." It's like,
I
it's your
don't,
job.
I don't, I don't understand why so many actors have so many opinions about the characters that they're asked to play. It's a job.
Just before, right? I don't think you've ever thought of this, and I didn't either. Just before Marty and Doc leave 2015, you can actually see on the control panel the last time departed was November 12th, 1955. And if they had just looked at this, they would have known that someone else had used the car. But what's really funny is that Doc had to look at it to go back to 1985. Wouldn't he have noticed it said 1955? Yeah. I told you you'd like it.
What the fuck?
Could have been so simple, but it wasn't.
Are you serious? That's all they had to do?
That's all they had to do was look at it.
Oh my god.
They didn't have to go through half the
Oh,
movie.
wow.
Wow.
Oh my no, you know what? You know what? Best trivia of the whole season right there, guys. That's it. That's it.
Yep. Yep. The last trivia I have, the tunnel that Biff chases Marty in on the hoverboard is actually the same tunnel that they used in Roger Rabbit to get to Toontown, which I thought was really
Oh,
cool.
really? That's
Yeah.
cool.
But that's it. That's the end of my trivia.
All right, guys. So I think that'll put a bow on this edition of the Mixtape Podcast. Listen, guys, if you want to reach out to us with comments, suggestions, or anything at all, we do have an email address. Our email address is themixtapepod@aol.com. If you email us on there, we will address any comments, concerns, or we may give you a shout out on the show if we feel up to it. But if you are coming back next week we'll be covering the film The Queen of the Damned. So, for my fellow co host, Dean Stark, and for myself, I shall say if someone is ever kind enough to make you a mixtape, that must truly mean that they love you.
The Mixtape Podcast is a Balloonhead Productions presentation.